It began on a Monday morning, the kind that smelled like rain and regret. The city of Lagos was awake, restless, loud. But inside the glass walls of Omari Holdings, time moved differently, slow, heavy, like everyone could sense that something was about to change. The elevator doors opened with a chime. Out stepped a woman in a black suit, clean, precise, and quiet like power disguised as silence. Her heels clicked against the marble floor. Every sound she made echoed, demanding attention. "Good morning, Ma," the receptionist stammered. The woman didn't answer. She only nodded, eyes fixed ahead. Eyes that had seen too much, eyes that no longer trembled. She walked straight into the boardroom. 12 men were already seated, whispering under their breath. Some looked confused, others nervous, and one could not even raise his head. Mr. Omari, the founder, the man once called the lion of the company. The woman stopped right beside him. For a long moment there was only silence, the kind that cuts deeper than words. Then she spoke, calm, controlled, almost too calm. "I'll be taking over as CEO, effective today." No one moved, not even him, but her voice, low and sure, carried the weight of a storm. Somewhere outside, thunder cracked. Rain began to fall against the windows, thin at first, then heavy, like the sky itself was listening. Aide finally looked up. His face was pale. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Because there she was, the woman he once called wife, the woman he betrayed, the woman who had walked away with nothing, and now returned with everything. The air in the room turned colder. Every executive sat frozen, watching the strange poetry unfold. Power and pain facing each other across the same table. She placed a file in front of him. "Sign it," she said softly. He hesitated. Her eyes never blinked. "Or I'll make sure the world knows exactly how you built this company." It was not just a statement. It was history speaking. Every heartbeat in that room felt like a drum, reminding them, no empire built on betrayal lasts forever. She turned her gaze to the city below. Cars crawling through wet streets, the skyline blurred by rain. And for a fleeting second, her face softened. Maybe she remembered the girl she once was, the one who believed in love more than ambition, the one who built his dreams while he built his lies. Then she exhaled slowly. "Let's begin," she whispered. And just like that, the storm outside grew louder, as if the heavens were applauding her return. The man she once loved lowered his head. The woman he cheated on had come back, not for revenge, but to reclaim everything he thought she couldn't survive without. Her name was Amara, 34 years old, born in Enugu, raised by a mother who believed that hard work was prayer in motion. Every scar on her heart had a story, and every story began with trust. Before the glass walls and boardrooms, there was a small tailoring shop behind her mother's house. That was where Amara learned precision. How one wrong stitch could ruin a whole design. How patience, not power, shaped beauty. Her hands once smelled of fabric and chalk dust, not expensive perfume. She used to laugh easily back then. Her smile was wide, her eyes kind. Neighbors would bring torn clothes to her shop, and she'd fix them without asking for payment. "God will pay me in other ways," she'd say. And somehow, he always did. That's where Omari first found her. Standing in the heat, adjusting the sleeve of a wedding gown. He was everything she wasn't. Rich, loud, confident. His car alone could buy her mother's house 3 times over. But when he smiled, it wasn't arrogance she saw. It was charm, or at least what she thought was charm. He promised her the world, and for a while he delivered. Dinner at fine places she never knew existed. Soft music, slow dancing in the living room. She thought love was supposed to feel that full. They married 2 years later. A simple ceremony, small church, too much joy. Her mother had cried that day, not tears of sadness but of fear. "Shebi, you know rich men," she whispered. "They love differently." Amara laughed then, not understanding. Now she did. Years passed. Aid built his company, and she built him. Word by word, idea by idea. She studied business at night, reading until dawn just to help him draft proposals. She attended meetings silently, taking notes, smiling politely while they called her the supportive wife. She was more than that. She was the engine behind his vision. But power has a way of changing people. Slowly, then suddenly, Aid became colder, busier, unreachable. He began coming home later, smelling of perfume she didn't wear. And one night she found what every woman prays never to find, the proof. It wasn't the cheating that destroyed her. It was the realization that she had built a throne for someone who saw her as a servant. He called it a mistake. She called it the end. When she left, she took nothing. Not even her pride. Just a suitcase, a few clothes, and her mother's framed picture. She disappeared from Lagos like a ghost swallowed by traffic. People whispered she was finished, that she couldn't survive without him. But she did. And what grew inside her wasn't bitterness. It was hunger. Hunger to rise, not to ruin. In Port Harcourt, she started again. A small business, handmade accessories, long hours, sleepless nights. Her fingers bled, but her spirit didn't. With time, her ideas caught attention. Investors saw what Aid never did. Brilliance without ego. She climbed, one contract after another. Her brand grew. Her name became a whisper in boardrooms she once wasn't allowed to enter. And then, the call came. Omari Holdings was struggling. The board wanted new leadership. They needed someone who understood the company's core better than anyone. Fate had a strange sense of humor. Now as she sat in the corner office, his old office, Amara could feel the ghost of her past standing beside her. The city outside buzzed with energy. Rain streaked the window, drawing faint rivers down the glass. Her assistant, Kemi, knocked softly. "Madam, press is waiting for your statement." Amara nodded. 5 minutes. She stared at her reflection. Same face, different woman. No longer soft, no longer waiting. In her heart, she carried one truth her mother used to say: when life throws you into fire, don't pray to escape it. Pray to come out gold, and she did. Her goal was never revenge anymore. It was restoration of her dignity, her peace, and the version of herself she almost lost. But beneath that calm, there was still something trembling. The memory of love, fragile and dangerous. Because even after everything, part of her still wondered, did he ever love her? Or was she just another chapter in his story of ambition? That question lingered like smoke in her chest, unseen but suffocating. And as she prepared to face the world as CEO, Amara knew one thing. Power didn't heal pain. It only made it louder. It began with a single email. No subject line. No sender name. Just a strange, unsigned message that appeared in Amara's inbox at 2:17 a.m. "They're planning to sell the company. You are the only one who can stop it." She stared at it, half awake, heart drumming against her ribs. The rain outside tapped against the window, soft but steady, like fingers demanding her attention. At first she thought it was a scam, the kind of desperate corporate rumor people spread for clicks. But then she saw the attachment, a file labeled Confidential Board Resolution Draft. When she opened it, her breath caught. Aid's signature. Her name mentioned, not as CEO, but as former spouse with no legal right to oppose. And below, the company's assets listed for liquidation. Her company, the company she helped him build from nothing. He was selling it, erasing her legacy. She felt a cold wave rise from her stomach to her throat. For a long time, she just sat there, staring at the glowing screen in the dark. The sound of rain grew heavier. Somewhere outside, a car splashed through puddles, its headlights flashing briefly through the window. Her fingers trembled as she closed her laptop. Why now? Why after all these years of silence, of carefully built peace? That night, sleep refused her. Memories poured in. The laughter they once shared, the promises he whispered, the nights she waited for him to come home. And now this. Another betrayal. Not of love this time, but of legacy. By morning, she made her decision. She would go back. The drive from Port Harcourt to Lagos was long, wet, and tense. As her car crossed the old bridge into the city, she could see the skyline rising through the mist, towers piercing through clouds like ambition carved into concrete. She used to love that view. Now it only reminded her of everything she lost. When she arrived at the headquarters of Omari Holdings, she stood outside for a moment, letting the wind whip her hair. The building looked taller than she remembered. Glass and steel, cold and proud, just like Aid. Inside, familiar faces turned. Some gasped, some whispered. A few tried to hide their shock, but the truth was written all over their expressions. They thought she'd never return. The board meeting was already in session. Aid sat at the head of the table, surrounded by his allies, confident as ever, until the door opened. The silence that followed could have swallowed the whole room. She walked in, calm but heavy with purpose. In her hand, the leaked document, folded neatly. Amara, his voice cracked slightly, the first sign of weakness she'd seen in years. She placed the paper on the table in front of him. You're selling our company? He avoided her gaze. It's not your company anymore. A quiet laugh escaped her. Not amusement, just disbelief. She had built those numbers he now wanted to trade for money. Every strategy, every pitch, every early morning when he wanted to quit, she had been the voice that kept it alive. The men around the table shifted uncomfortably. Gentlemen, she said softly, if this sale happens, you'll lose more than just profit. You'll lose credibility. Aid's hand tightened into a fist. You have no authority here. Amara leaned closer. Then why did someone inside your circle send me this file? He froze. The room fell into murmurs. That was the moment everything changed. Amara could have walked away again, could have protected her peace and left him to his own ruin. But something inside her refused. Not pride, not vengeance. Something deeper. This was not about him anymore. This was about her name, about reclaiming the truth that had been buried under his lies. I'm not here to fight, she said finally. I'm here to rebuild. She paused, then added, even if I have to start from your ashes. And with that, she slid the legal papers across the table. Her official petition for reinstatement as CEO. A decision that would ignite every buried flame in their shared past. The boardroom erupted. Aid's voice rose in anger. But through the noise, Amara felt an old strength return. The kind she thought she'd lost the day she walked away from him. The rain outside had stopped now. Only the thunder remained, rolling softly across the city, like a warning of the storm that was about to come. The boardroom tension didn't die that day. It only changed form. Like smoke that refuses to vanish, it lingered in the corners of Omri Holdings, curling through corridors, whispering in hushed tones. Everywhere Amara walked, eyes followed her. Some admired her courage, some resented her audacity, and a few, especially those loyal to AE, waited silently for her to fail. By the third week, her office felt more like a battlefield than a workspace. Files went missing, contracts were delayed, important clients suddenly withdrew. She knew it wasn't coincidence. This was sabotage, and behind it all, she could feel his shadow, AIDS. But Amara didn't flinch. She worked longer hours, spoke less, and watched more. Power, she'd learned, didn't always roar. Sometimes it waited in silence until the right moment to strike. One evening, as she stayed late in the office, the building quiet except for the hum of air conditioners, she found an old file tucked deep inside her drawer, a file she hadn't opened in years. Inside were faded photographs, the day the company was registered, the two of them smiling beside their first signed contract, young and full of hope. Her fingers traced his face for a moment, not with affection, but with remembrance. How strange, she thought, that love could one day look like an old scar, healed but still sensitive to touch. The door creaked open. Aid stood there, half in shadow, his tie loosened, eyes bloodshot. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly. He stepped in anyway. Neither should you. The silence between them was sharp. Years of unspoken words floated in that space. He looked at the photo in her hand and smiled faintly. We were good once. She didn't look up. We were honest once. He winced, then sighed. You think you can run this place without me? Without what I built? Amara turned slowly, her gaze calm but piercing. I already am. He walked closer, voice lowering. You think the board respects you? They're using you to clean up the mess before they sell what's left. She studied him. There was fear behind his arrogance, the kind a man hides when his empire begins to crumble. You've changed, he muttered. No, she said softly. I just stopped shrinking. Days became weeks. Each decision she made tightened the noose around his pride. She restructured departments, reopened suspended projects, and brought in new investors. Her calmness infuriated him because he couldn't understand power that didn't scream. Then came the rumor, whispered first in the cafeteria, then in the elevator, until it reached even the boardroom. Someone was leaking confidential information to a rival company. All signs pointed toward Amara. It was a trap, but it worked. The board called an emergency meeting. Documents were presented, altered emails, false signatures, carefully timed transactions. It looked convincing. Aide sat back, watching silently, letting the accusations sting her from every direction. Finally, Amara spoke. Whoever created this wants chaos, but lies don't age well. The chairman frowned. Do you deny this evidence? I do. She reached into her folder and pulled out printed call logs. Real ones. Because while those emails were being sent, I was at a charity event. With three of you sitting right there, murmurs filled the room. Aide's jaw tightened. She continued, her voice steady. Check the timestamps. Truth doesn't hide, even in the dark. By the end of the meeting, but Aide's expression said it all. This wasn't over. That night, Amara drove home through streets glistening with rain, the city lights blurred behind the windshield, like memories refusing to stay clear. She parked outside her apartment and sat there for a long time, engine humming softly. For the first time since returning, she felt tired, not from work, but from the weight of constantly proving she deserved to exist in rooms she helped build. She closed her eyes and her mother's voice echoed from the past. When power tests you, don't answer with pride. Answer with patience. Thunder doesn't rush to speak. A shiver ran through her. 2 days later, a stranger arrived at her office. An elderly woman dressed in deep indigo, her hair silver, her face marked with tribal patterns of wisdom. I am Mama Nkem, she said. Your mother sent me before she died. Amara froze. You knew my mother? Yes, and she told me something long ago, that one day her daughter would return to face the man who stole her destiny. The woman's voice was calm, almost prophetic. She placed a small cowrie shell on the desk. When storms return, the ancestors must be acknowledged, she said softly. You've been walking with anger. But anger calls its own ghosts. Amara stared at the shell, unsure whether to laugh or cry. I don't believe in spirits. Mama Nkem smiled faintly. You don't have to. They believe in you. And just like that, she left. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. The air in her apartment felt heavier. The lights flickered once, and the cowrie shell gleamed faintly on the table, as if it was breathing. She tried to dismiss it, but deep down something old stirred. The same feeling she had the night she walked out of Aide's house years ago, the night her mother had called her, crying, warning her. Don't ignore what your spirit feels. It always knows before your mind does. Meanwhile, Aide's world was falling apart. The company's finances were worse than he'd admitted. His investors were withdrawing, and his second marriage, the glamorous one he left Amara for, was cracking under debt and scandal. He drank more, slept less, but his obsession with destroying Amara only grew stronger. He began calling her at odd hours, sometimes to argue, sometimes to beg, sometimes just to remind her he existed. One night, he showed up at her house uninvited, drenched in rain, eyes wild. You took everything from me, he said. She didn't open the gate. No aid. You gave it away. He slammed his fist against the metal. You think this ends with you on top? Her voice didn't rise. It ends when you stop trying to live off lies. The rain fell harder, beating against him like punishment. He stared at her silhouette through the gate, and for a moment he looked small. Do you still hate me? He asked. She paused. No, I just don't remember you anymore. He turned away, the darkness swallowing him whole. The following week, the company's audit team discovered a secret account. Millions transferred out under Aid's name. The media caught it first. Headlines exploded. Omari Holdings under fraud investigation. And at the center of the storm, Aid Omari. The board demanded answers. He denied it all. But the evidence was irrefutable. This time, no forged files, no scapegoats. Amara watched it unfold quietly. She didn't gloat, didn't smile. Her revenge had already been written by fate itself. Yet deep down, something about it unsettled her. The shell on her desk cracked open that same night. Inside it, a small golden thread, fine as hair. She didn't know what it meant, but she felt it. The ancestors were moving. Something was about to happen that would change everything, not just for her and Aid, but for the company and everyone bound to it. The next morning, she received a message from an unknown number. You think you've won, but the truth you've built your empire on isn't yours. Meet me at the old factory, midnight. Her pulse quickened. The old factory. The place where Omari Holdings had first begun, where she and Aid signed their first contract. She hesitated. Logic told her to ignore it, but her heart and something deeper, older, told her to go. She picked up the cracked cowrie shell, slipped it into her pocket, and whispered under her breath, "If I fall, let truth catch me." Then she left, unaware that the night waiting ahead would expose a secret far older than betrayal and far more dangerous than love itself. The night was soaked in rain again, heavy, relentless, like the sky itself was mourning something unseen. Amara drove through the empty industrial district, headlights slicing through mist. The old factory loomed ahead, its metal roof glinting faintly under lightning. This was where it all began. The birth of their company, their marriage, their dream. Now it waited like an ancient witness for its final chapter. She parked, stepped out, and pulled her coat tighter against the cold. The wind carried the metallic scent of wet iron and decay. Inside, the vast hall was silent except for water dripping from the ceiling. A voice broke the stillness. "You came." Aid stepped out from the shadows. His face was thinner, eyes sunken, but his pride still clung to him like a second skin. "So it was you," Amara said softly. "The message." He nodded, lips curling. "You always loved chasing truth. Here it is." He tossed a folder onto an old work table. The papers spilled. Contracts, bank statements, birth records. But one document caught her eye. It bore her signature, or what looked like it. Her stomach turned. "This is a forgery." "No," Aid said quietly. "It's real." "You just don't remember lightning flashed?" The sound rolled through the hall like a drumbeat from the ancestors. "What are you talking about?" He stepped closer. "You didn't just build this company, Amara. You founded it. Before we married, before I came along, Omari Holdings was registered under your name first, Nwosu and Company. I just changed the name after you signed the merger papers." Her breath caught. "You stole it." "I saved it," he shouted. "You didn't believe you could take it that far." "I did. I turned your dream into an empire." Her hands trembled, fury and disbelief mixing like fire and oil. "You built it on theft." He slammed his hand on the table. "And you came back to steal it from me again." The lights flickered. Somewhere above, thunder cracked so loud it shook the glass. Amara's voice lowered to a whisper. "No, Aid. I came to reclaim what's mine." A gust of wind tore through the broken windows, scattering papers like restless spirits. The cowrie shell in her pocket began to vibrate. Faintly at first, then stronger. Aid frowned. "What is that?" She pulled it out. The shell glowed faintly gold, humming like a living thing. "My mother's warning," she murmured. The ground seemed to tremble. The air thickened, pulsing. Shadows along the walls stretched like dark roots, twisting toward the center of the room. Aid stepped back. "What is this?" The voice that followed wasn't hers. It was older, deeper, layered with something that belonged to the earth itself. "Blood built this house. Blood must cleanse it." Aid froze. "Who said that?" Amara didn't answer. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the light of the shell. The storm outside roared louder, rain hammering the roof like drums of judgment. She heard her mother's voice echo in her mind. When injustice rots too long, the ancestors rise to finish what mortals fear to start. Ade's breath quickened. Amara, stop this! You stopped it first, she said, her tone steady, strange. When you took what wasn't yours. Lightning split the sky, and the factory doors slammed shut with a deafening bang. Papers flew in spirals. The floor quaked. Ade stumbled backward, terrified now. Amara! She didn't move. She was standing in the center of the storm, hair whipping, voice steady as if she was speaking to the heavens themselves. Let truth return to its keeper. The glow from the shell exploded into blinding light. For a moment, everything stopped. The rain, the thunder, even breath itself. When it faded, Ade was on his knees. The folder in front of him burned at the edges, revealing beneath it the original company registration. Nwosu and Company, dated years before their marriage, signed by Amara herself. He looked up, tears and rain mixing on his face. I didn't mean to, but you did, she said, and now the ancestors have seen it. The glow dimmed. The shell cracked once more, turning to dust in her palm. Silence followed, deep, heavy, sacred. Ade's shoulders shook. What happens now? Amara looked at him for a long moment. Now justice breathes again. She turned to leave, but as she reached the door, she stopped, and without looking back, she said, You could have built the world with me. Instead, you chose to bury it beneath your pride. Then she walked out into the rain. Behind her, the factory lights flickered once more and went out completely. When dawn came, the headlines told the rest. Omari Holdings restored, fraud exposed. Founder reinstated. Amara Nwosu. But no one mentioned the lightning strike that split the factory roof that same night, or the faint echo of drums that some guards swore they heard, as if ancestors were dancing at last. The sun rose gently over Lagos, painting the glass walls of Adenye Holdings in gold. The same office that once whispered his name now echoed hers. The scent of freshly brewed coffee floated through the halls. Not the bitterness of rivalry anymore, but the warmth of renewal. Employees moved with quiet respect. The woman who was once introduced as Mr. Adnia's wife now walked the marble floor as Madam CEO. Her stride was calm, measured, powerful. Amara stood before the wide window of her corner office. The city stretched beneath her, a living, breathing reminder of everything she had survived. The betrayal, the humiliation, the long nights of study and rebuilding. For a long moment, she just watched the streets below, the people, the traffic, the chaos. Life moved on, indifferent yet poetic. Her assistant entered softly. Ma, the board is waiting. She nodded, but before she left, her eyes caught something. A familiar figure in the lobby, dressed in faded confidence. Tunda. He looked smaller now, not just in power, but in spirit. The man who once built empires from arrogance now carried himself like a shadow, chasing forgiveness. When he entered her office, silence filled the air. Not the silence of love, nor hate, but of distance. Amara, his voice cracked. I came to congratulate you. She studied him, not with anger, but with something deeper, pity mixed with peace. Thank you, Tunde. I didn't build this to hurt you. I built it to heal me. He lowered his eyes. I lost everything. She stepped closer, her tone steady. No, Tunde. You gave everything away. For a moment, that meant nothing. For the first time, she smiled. Not the smile of triumph, but liberation. Later that evening, Amara drove back to her late father's village. The air there smelled of earth and memory. Children ran barefoot by the dusty roads, chasing laughter. Old women waved at her car, pride shining in their eyes. She parked beneath the old baobab tree and sat quietly, remembering the night her father once told her, When the storm breaks you, child, rebuild yourself with the pieces. She whispered softly, I did, Papa. I did, the wind answered. warm, forgiving, almost ancestral. In the distance, thunder rumbled faintly, not in warning this time, but as a drumbeat of destiny fulfilled. Amara closed her eyes, feeling tears, not of pain, but release. She had become the woman she once feared she'd never be. The past didn't vanish. It became part of her strength. And as the first evening stars appeared above, she rose slowly, whispering into the night. Some stories don't end with revenge. They end with rebirth. In the quiet that follows every storm, truth becomes clear, not shouted but whispered through the cracks of what once was. Amara's journey was never about revenge. It was about becoming the woman she was meant to be long before betrayal tried to define her. Pain had been her teacher, humility her compass, and resilience her redemption. We often think heartbreak destroys, but sometimes it rebuilds us stronger than destiny first intended. The same hands that once trembled in despair can later build empires. The same voice that once cried in silence can one day command a room. Amara's story reminds us that the universe is patient. It balances what pride disrupts. Justice doesn't always arrive in noise or blood. Sometimes it comes softly, through growth, through grace. For in the end, true victory is not making another fall. It is rising so high that the past can no longer reach you. As she stood beneath the stars that night, the world seemed to bow, not to her power, but to her peace. And the wind carried one truth across the fields, across the city, across the hearts of all who would ever know her story. When betrayal plants you in the dirt, grow roots, not bitterness. For even buried seeds rise toward the sun.